next speaker and professional with a huge background in the wood industry from Sweden. His name Bengt Sörvik. And Bengt, yeah, here you are.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to this conference.
Yeah, please feel free to start your speech.
Yes, okay. I will share my screen here first, see that everything works fine. I think it's that one. Okay. Do you see that?
It's loading. Yes, you can start.
Okay. Yeah. Alex have asked me to tell you a little about what I know about the experience of 40 years of timber traceability, and actually it's more than 40 years. It's about even over 100 years, I would like to say. Okay, so who am I? First, brief presentation about me. Let's see if I can change the so I'm a professional educated forester that started for almost half a decade ago. So we're talking about the young people. We are needing young people, but eventually then I said to myself, the industry need young people, but now I become an old people. So I hope that you still are interested. Okay, when I started to work as a professional logger, I was very amused about the industry, and I decided to be in that industry for the rest of my life. And I have done a lot of different works in the professional forestry, and also have a lot of experience in international forestry, in basically industrial forestry. So basically we are working with two big projects now. It's a European funded project and one from New Zealand, actually. I'm the founder also and the innovator of the system that Otmetka tries to get into the market. So a very typical question I always get from my colleagues in the business is, who's going to pay? And I sometimes say to them, how much do you lose every day? But they don't give me the answer on that. I mean, if we see this, compare it like an email, and if you send an email and go to the last station should be, you print it out and put it on the table, you have not a complete digital solution, you have a broken chain. And that's really how we work in forestry. We have a lot of digital tools, but we don't combine it together. And if we go into the professional forestry, one has to understand that it's a logging industry and it's a logistic solution, and we are always try to optimize. We never ever will have 100% perfect solution. We try to get as close as possible. So if we can increase the decisions and keep these data in an unbroken chain, I normally ask people, don't you think that you can increase your work eventually 2% if you count it on a day? And I normally get maybe yes. So if we put that together and make just a rough estimation, in the Swedish forestry, it's about $100 million a year, and that's just to the sawmill. If we then contain and go into the sawmill and to the end of the product line, it's even more. So it's a lot of money, actually. So a typical image could be like this, and actually that's why I started to think about this idea 30 years ago. I worked under the Forest Agency in Sweden, and my mission at that time was to try to improve GIS. People didn't know what GIS was. It was a fairly new technology in the forestry, image analyzing, remote sensing, etc. LiDAR was not really invented at that time. So, and we had a project and we tried to get more of good aerial images, etc., for getting an improved decision possibility to improve the decision for how to harvest the forest. Because you have to know, when the modern harvester start working in the forest, they have from the sawmill an order how to cut the wood. So it's not really just going out and start chopping wood. They try to estimate it as good as possible. So therefore, it's very interesting to get the information from the sawmill and going backwards to the forestry and try to use all the data sources and combine them in order to get as accurate result as possible. This is very, very important, and here we lose money every day, I would like to say. So if we look in a perspective backwards, when I was a young boy, they still floated timber in the rivers, and I saw this huge pile on the riverside, because we didn't have so much of forest roads at that time. So, and when the first tracking solution was actually a stamping axe. And these stamping axe was owned by the sawmill, and everyone has their own as a mark. So the guys, before they floated the timber, because they use the same river, like a common river, if you would like to say so, like an internet 400 years ago. And then they floated the timber down to a special point where they divided all these timber so it gets to the right sawmill. So therefore, many sawmills were ended up in the end of the river and also close to harbors. So these stamping axe was his first way of trying to get tracing ability in order to get the right buyer for the right timber log. In the 1980s, one of my friends actually started to think about an idea to put a machine saw as a chainsaw on the tip of a crane, because he realized that we moved around the harvester at that time quite much before we can really fell the tree, and that we lost a lot of time in order to relocate the harvester before the felling the tree, because at that time we have the harvesting head was mounted on the carrier. So in the 80s, he worked with that, and that was an explosion actually when it was set up, because the forest reduced the cost for 1/3 actually of the harvesting cost. And by that, they also starting to realize that they have problems to measure the logs, because when you measure a log in the forest, it's completely different than you measure it in the sawmill. Because in the sawmill, you can have digital solution. And even now, one of our partners in the European Union project, they have a very nice technology where you can look inside the log as well. So they started to develop a kind of standard for different manufacturers in Sweden, and that really started in the 19s, and it was also a demand from the forest, because they would like to get a short truck, to transport the timber on trucks. They would like to shorten the distance. So they sometimes say, if you give me your timber, you can get mine, because you have a sawmill closer to your harvesting plot, etc. And therefore they needed to find a way to describe the timber value and the timber volume explicitly as equal as possible. So therefore, they developed a standard that still are using, and everywhere in the world now they're going into these standards, stand 4D actually. And it's developed by the industry, but it's an organization quite close to my home actually, who have the responsibility of developing this standard. And now when we get into the sawmill, we get even more information from the log, and therefore the interest for us as professional foresters is to get this information back to the forest and have these as decision tools before we even cut the logs. Because when you have cut the trees and cut the logs, you're really starting to vanish the value of the timber if you do the wrong operation. Where we are today is that we are developing constantly these, the business, also the forest industry is constantly developing these Stanford solution. And now we are also including geographical information as a systems into the system, so we can start using as a geographical position about piles of wood, etc. So we don't really use in the forestry now an automatic system for marking logs. We use it on the roadside where we label the logs, but not automatically. And I think the last put in this chain is to make an automatic marking that combine the exact data of each log into the bucking computer in the harvester. And therefore, I have looked throughout the year. I started with this idea for 30 years ago. I realized that the stamping axe that I presented in the former slide was the right solution, actually. But I had an idea that it must be divided in different enumerations. So we created a patent solution now about a rotating stamp that actually are set in 16 positions, so we get a huge number of combination. That means that every log around the world could have its own identically ID that are combined automatically by the data from the harvesters. And then we can optional also add all other solutions that the customer eventually would like to have. If it's a batch code of text, or if it's we'll use biometry. Biometry is interesting, but it's difficult because it's kind of fresh images, and the tree are also getting old and dark, you know, throughout the logging operation. We can add RFID, we can add evil label. So at the same time that we stamp the code. And so the code has two basic IDs. First of all, it is an identity of the log, but it's also a seal of the log and a primary key code for a data solution that we are actually building now. And these gives a huge so a very many things that we can create, and we're actually building that. The next session, that in a year we hope that we will have this machine first running in the forest. So it's a cloud service connected to these solution. We can eventually go for blockchain. People talking about that. We don't see the need so much that the industry or eventually do, but we can do it. And it's so the data, everyone can put in the data into this system and add it to our code, and this will be a never-ending community of more data so we see it's like an ecosystem of data, really. And depending on that, the whole solution is encrypted in many levels. We can keep all the data from the owner, say, in a safe way. It's not a public solution. It's a solution for the customer who owns the data and really guard it. So we are keeping these data in a secure way, and we also keep the transaction and all the business that people would like to add into that safe. So in some way, I would like to say this: the answer of the first question, who is going to pay, is that it's kind of shared economy. If different partners improve the profitability of the timber value, they will be part of the payment. So this pile of logs is from a thunderstorm who was done 2005 in Sweden. In one night, there was blown down timber that we cut for 1 year in the southern part of Sweden. It was a tremendous thunderstorm. I never seen things like that before. And when we tried to operate this on and harvest these logs, because the trees were falling all over over southern part of Sweden, there was a big issue. How can we also keep the system running, because all the real estate also border lines, etc., they were destroyed. So they have great problems to even know who owns the timber. Even they know that some of these guys were this should be my timber, or should be my neighbor's timber. There is a peculiar story that one also guy from another country in Europe who was here driving with his truck. He had the same number from, also the same branding number from that he should add on one certain estate the whole autumn. So people didn't know how to divide the logs. If we should have the Otmetka ID at that place, everything should be sorted out easily. And we think that should be in the future in our solution, Find My Timber. Yeah, this was basically what I had to tell you about right now. We are actually working with 2 projects now, and we will install it in one harvester here next year and start working with it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Bengt, for your presentation and for your, I would say, pioneering solution. I hope that we will see your project go live as soon as possible.
I can eventually, if you like, I can also show you some.
I'm sorry, but we have to hurry up with the next speaker, and to the questions we will back after the presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.